the cutest pro, I guess you can say. This could be fun. This is what goes either way. Bye, fun. I am not telling you to go do bad things.
Count 1, 2, 3, and don't you stop the music, get into it. Won't you dance with me? Find a place and lose it. You can do it. Won't you dance with me? Move your down now, we let it go. Sunset high and our bodies low.
Hey y'all, what is up? It is Marissa Nicole and welcome back to my channel. Some of you may know me as my drifting desk where I help you conquer college, and that's exactly what we're gonna do today. Today I wanted to give you a little insight into what it's like living off campus. Don't worry, we'll be doing a what it's like living on campus and in your sorority house later on in the summer, but today we're talking all about off-campus living, and I just kind of wanted to give you some pros and cons of it, tell you what my experience was, and what you should kind of look forward to or look out for when you're about to live off campus in college. A little background on me: I am a student here at The Ohio State University. I've lived in the dorms for 2 years, I've lived in an apartment off campus, a house off campus, and I've lived in my sorority house, and so I've got a little bit of it all, and I just wanted to share some of my knowledge with you guys, just in case you're a new freshman, or even if you're an upperclassman about to move out of the dorms for the first time. Here are some things that maybe you didn't know, maybe you did, but either way, I want to share with you. Before we dive into the video, please consider subscribing down below if you haven't yet already. I do tons of videos about sorority life, I do vlogs, DIYs, how-tos, hauls, or college videos like this one, and so if all of that sounds like fun to you, you should definitely consider subscribing. Alright, so let's get into the video and talk about some of the pros first. Why not start out on a high note? This first one I guess could go into either way. I don't have really like a medium section that we're gonna go through, but it could be a pro, it could be a con, depending on how you look at it. But the first point that I wanted to talk about is basically food, or grocery shopping, meal plans, etc. So when you live on campus at a college or university, typically you're required to have a meal plan. You can always get a meal plan when you live off campus if you would like, but it's not required. And so the fun thing, I guess could be fun, this is why it goes either way, but the fun thing about living off campus is that you're able to go grocery shopping by yourself, for yourself, get things that you like, especially if you're sick and tired of dorm food or campus food. They never have anything that you like. Now you're able to have your own kitchen, things that you can make yourself. If your dorm didn't have a kitchen, or if your sorority house doesn't have a kitchen, this is just the best way for you to cook the meals that you like, eat the way that you finally have been wanting to for the past year, maybe 2 years. I know I was super excited to live off campus because I eat a ton of pasta. I'm a plain eater, I'm a very picky eater, so it's really hard for me to eat on campus because they don't typically have a lot of those plain things for me, but also it's really hard to eat in my sorority house because we do have a chef. They cook us all of our meals, but again, he's a chef, so he's making all this fancy stuff, and I was like, can I just get a grilled cheese, man? They make such good food, but just not for me. So I was really excited to finally get off campus into an apartment where I can cook my own food and have my own kitchen. Some of you may not like that if you don't know how to cook, or if it's just kind of an inconvenience to you. I have tons of friends who live off campus and still have a meal plan just because it's convenient. That is definitely up to you. The next pro is definitely if you're of age. I am not telling you to go do bad things, but now that you're not in the dorms, or at least in a sorority house or anything like that, you're able to kind of be yourself and be an adult. And what I mean by that is you're allowed to drink. I love margaritas. That is my favorite drink. I love tequila. My nickname is Marissa. It's just a lot of things, and obviously you can't have alcohol in the dorms. You cannot have alcohol in sorority houses, and so I am of age. I am 22, so I'm allowed to drink, thank you. But I love being in my own spice because I can make margaritas whenever I want to, or I can bring stuff home, or you can have a pregame at your house or something like that. This is your space, you can use it how you'd like, and that way if I do have an event or my friends and I want to go out to the bars, I can invite people over here, we can get ready and have a few drinks before we go out, and I just like being able to live my life in my own space. I think my favorite part of getting my apartment was definitely having my own bed that was not a twin XL, because in the dorms you have those twin XL beds, and my sorority house, it was fully furnished, but again, we had a twin XL bed. I'm so excited to be in my apartment with a queen bed, my own things, my own dresser, my own bathroom, like all of these things that I wasn't able to do or have in the dorms or in my sorority house. I just like having my own space. I'm such a neat freak, and I have a way of doing things. I have a routine, and I like having my own space to do that routine and be able to put my things away where it needs to go, and not having to share a room in a quad or having a communal bathroom. I just love having my own space. It just makes me feel more empowered and just more creative and all of these things because I'm able to decorate how I would like. So that was definitely my favorite part of finally moving off campus, was just having my space, being able to decorate it how I would like, being able to use it how I like, and sleeping in my own big bed. Kind of going off a point or two before, it can be a good or a bad thing, but since you're off campus, this is where you're gonna run into more of the party scene at least the house parties. and that can be a good thing if you're into that scene. It can be a bad thing if you're not, because if you're not really into that, it could be kind of loud, especially if you're off campus but still in central campus area, especially at Ohio State. If you're living off campus but in all of like the 15th, 16th, 17th, all of those little streets, you're still going to be getting a lot of the party scenes out there. If you get really far off campus, then you're going to get away from all of that, but the closer you are to campus, the more party scene you're going to run into typically, and if you're not really into that, it can be kind of loud and distracting. But if you are into that, you have fun things to do on the weekends, and it's kind of like more your lifestyle. If you want to go sit on the porch and have a beer or anything like that, you have your space to do it in. My last pro for you would be kind of the cutest pro, I guess you can say, and this is not typical in every place. There's a lot of places off campus that will not let you do this, but if you find the perfect one that does, it's amazing. And I want to say that one of the cutest reasons to live off campus is so that you can have your pets. I have a cat, her name is Raquel, and I love having her. She's my best friend. I've had her for about 10 years, and I'm so excited to be in an apartment where I can have her with me. I can cuddle with her whenever I want to. It just kind of makes me feel better inside. I don't know. Some of the places will not let you have animals, especially dogs. You're more likely to be able to have a cat than you can a dog, but if you find an apartment that lets you have your animal, that's definitely a pro of living off campus, because you cannot have pets in the dorms or typically in sorority houses either. That should be pretty much all of my pros. I just wanted to kind of quick fire some of the highlights at you. Now I kind of want to switch it to kind of the cons, get you thinking about what it's really going to be like living off campus, just to put some things into perspective for you. The first thing that I always worry about when I'm doing literally anything, if you watch my channel for a long time, you know this, I am a stickler for price and money and making sure I'm getting the best deal and all of these things and how I'm going to pay for it. So one of the kind of bad things about living off campus is that it can be pricey, although it is cheaper than living in a dorm typically. But what's really cool about living in a dorm, at least for me in my financial situation, is that it's kind of covered with my tuition and costs. So when I'm taking out loans for my school, if I'm taking out those federal unsub and sub loans, I can put that towards my housing, so that's not something that I have to pay monthly as like me working, get a paycheck and pay my rent. It's kind of paid with my tuition through the university. So you can't directly do that with off-campus housing. You can kind of finesse it in a way, especially if you get like a refund check of those loans, then yes, you can pay your rent with that refund check, and that's great. I never get refund checks. That's not how my finances are set up, but if you do, you can pay for your housing that way, but typically it's gonna be something that you're gonna have to pay out of pocket or get like a private loan, another loan that you can pay that with if that's what you're kind of going for. But for me, I do have to work a job and save up my money and save up my checks to be able to pay my rent every month. And so that is something that's kind of more hectic than just being able to pay it with one of my tuition loans, if that makes sense. But like I said, it is typically cheaper than living on campus, because for example, living in Ohio State, it is roughly about $10,000 to live in a dorm for the year. That's a lot of money. So if you're thinking about living off campus, let's say your rent is $500 a month, that's only gonna be about $5,000 for the year rather than 10. So you're literally cutting that in half. Now, of course, you do have to put in if your utilities and stuff are gonna be built into your rent, or if you have to pay that extra, if you're paying for like Wi-Fi, if you're paying for groceries, that may add up to basically the same amount. But if you're looking at just like the lump sum of $10,000 to $5,000 just for rent, that is helpful. On that note, another con, which can kind of go both ways, is basically that you're gonna have to be an adult now. You're gonna have to pay bills now. You're gonna have to get bills in your name, so you might have to contact, you know, AEP and Columbia Gas and all of these things to set up all of these utilities in your apartment. They could be in your name or in one of your roommates' names. That is gonna be a credit check to get those things, which could ultimately it's gonna dink your credit a little bit. That's just a part of being an adult, having to pay those bills on time. If you don't, that can be really bad for you. It's just a lot more on you, a lot more responsibility to live off campus. So if you think you're ready for that, that's great, but just be aware that that is coming. I have lived with roommates in the past that when I moved out of my house and into my sorority house, I canceled all of the utilities in my name so that way they could put them in their names, and they were just so confused. They didn't know what to do. They don't know how this stuff works. They were upset to know that it did like a credit check. They were just so flabbergasted basically on how renting actually works, and I was kind of surprised because I'm like, this is normal. You should have known this when you're moving out of the dorms. You should know what you're getting yourself into. So just keep that in mind, that you're going to have to pay all these bills if it's not already included in your rent, and you may have to put these up in your name. You are going to have to be able to pay them on time. It's a lot more timely than making sure that you go grocery shopping on the first of the month, because if you don't, you don't. But if you don't pay your rent, bad. Depending on where you're at, especially on OSU's campus, you might run into some bad houses or bad apartments, and especially bad landlords. And that can be a con, because typically if something's wrong with your dorm, that's something you can go right to the university and be like, hey, my AC isn't working, get it fixed, and they'll fix it. Maybe in a couple days, but now that you're off campus, the university is not covering you, it's not taking care of you, it's not making sure that you're doing well. It's basically being like, bye, have fun, and you're gonna have to talk to this landlord now. So if something's wrong with your house, you're gonna have to contact the landlord, they have to contact maintenance, and then it could take a couple weeks for that to get fixed. If it does get fixed, if you have a good landlord and maintenance team. You may not, and that can be kind kind of bad. So look into those things. Check the reviews on places before you go and buy them, before you go and rent them. Make sure you're renting from a reputable place. Just do your research before you move in somewhere, and be aware that it might just get a little harder to get things done. So this next one can definitely go either way, another pro-con kind of thing, but you do get to live with who you actually want to live with. You may have been stuck with a random roommate in the dorms, which could be fun, but not always. I've had some bad experiences, I've had some good ones, but you could be stuck with a random roommate that you really don't want to live with. But when you go off campus, you have more of the freedom to pick and choose who you want to live with, and that's typically when you're going to talk to your besties and your friends or your sorority sisters, something, and say, hey, let's get an apartment together and you guys live happily ever after. But the way that it could turn into a con is that you want to choose who you live with wisely. Living with your best friends isn't always the best idea, only because it does change your relationship and your dynamic a little bit. They could be your best friend and you're gonna feel so comfortable talking to them about anything and everything. However, when the dishes aren't being done, are you gonna be able to be like, hey, can you do the dishes? And if they say no, how are you gonna react? Everything just kind of changes a little bit, and I just want you to be aware of that. And also really take into account, this person may be your best friend, you love them to death, but if they aren't kind of suited to live in your area, how is that gonna go? I mean, if you're really, really messy and then you're wanting to live with someone who's really clean, like, do you want to do that to them? Because you're gonna stress them out with all of your mess. You have to kind of take everything into consideration, because you want to live with someone that's going to make it work, someone that you like, and someone that you can depend on and make sure that they're responsible too. Because are they gonna pay their bills on time? Do you know that they're always asking you to borrow money? Do you know that they're never good for their money? You probably don't want to live with them, even if they are your best friend, because they're probably not gonna be able to have rent. So really take a look at the people you're wanting to live with. Make sure they're responsible, make sure you like them, make sure that you can handle them and they can handle you, and really make an informed decision. This next one is a con for sure, but it's a con depending on who you are and if you're gonna let this happen. So a lot of people, when they're living on campus, the colleges and universities are going to preach to you like it's the best thing ever, it's the greatest thing to do because it's gonna keep you accountable, it's close to proximity to all your classes, you're gonna stay on top of your stuff living on campus. And I 100% agree. That is the best thing to do, is to live on campus, because you're right there on campus. You're gonna go to class probably more often than if you live off campus. Especially if you live really far off campus, you're gonna be more likely to not go to class because it may be really cold out and you're like, I don't want to walk 20 minutes to campus. You're not gonna go. Let's say you are drinking and having fun the night before, you're really cozy in your nice queen bed, you're not gonna go to class. It just, don't let that happen to you, because it's probably more prone to happen when you're living off campus than when you are on campus, especially because if you're not sharing a room with someone, they may be able to keep you accountable and be like, hey, we usually get up at 8 every morning together, let's go, Marissa, get up, let's go. But if I'm here in an apartment by myself, nobody's gonna get me up but me. So kind of think of that. Don't let it happen to you. Be smart. You're here for your education first. The last thing that I wanted to make you aware of, depending on your college or university, this may be the same, but here at OSU, when you live in a dorm, typically all the dorms have washers and dryer units in them. So you can go downstairs, swipe your Buck ID, pay with Buck ID cash, and do your laundry, and then take it right back upstairs. Some of the apartments or houses that you're gonna live in may have units, and you may need to buy a washer and dryer, which is a huge expense. Some of them may not have it at all, where you're gonna have to go to an actual laundromat to do your laundry. All of that is kind of inconvenient, and so just keep that in mind when you're looking for apartments or houses. If you're wanting one that definitely has a unit already in it, just keep that on your radar and kind of tally that off when you go to different places. Be aware that you may have to go to a laundromat, which can be a little dirty. Don't leave your clothes there. Don't leave your clothes anywhere. Don't be that person in the dorm who leaves their clothes there for 2 days. I hope they get taken out and thrown on the floor, because that's disrespectful. But don't do it. At least just look to see if these places have laundry units or if there's one nearby. If you don't have a car, are you not near a laundromat? Like, how are you gonna get to the laundromat? Kind of think of those things. That's something that not a lot of people think about until they're already living there, and then 2 weeks go by and they need to do laundry and they're like, oh, how am I gonna do my laundry? So that's basically it. I just kind of wanted to quick fire some things that quickly come to mind for me of like pros and cons of living off campus. Again, I will be doing separate videos of living on campus and then living in a sorority house, just because I've done all three and I kind of want to give you my perspectives on those things. So be on the lookout for that. If you're not yet subscribed, please do, and hit that little notification bell. That way you get notified every time I post a new video. That way you don't miss out on those videos coming out soon. If you have any other pros or cons, leave them down below. Help each other out. Of course, I can't cover everything, and these are only my experiences. So if you have something, let us know down below. If you learned something new or you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. That way I know that you liked it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!
Downtown we let it go. Sunset high and our bodies low. Blood rush in a hazy glow.